Hi, this is Jay, CEO and single origin barista here at Jay's Homemade Super Tasting Coffees. And today, allow me to show you how to upgrade your coffee experience using the French press. This video will be in two parts. In part 1, we'll go through all the steps you need in order to brew yourself 1 cup of black coffee using the cafetiere or the French press. And in part 2, we'll just go into a slightly deeper dive into the hows and whys of great tasting brewed coffee, as well as some of the alternatives or hacks that you can do if you don't have some of the tools that I will be showing you in the brewing process. So before I continue, I just like to say a shout out and big thanks to our guys from Augusta Coffee Company. They've been sending me beans. And what's special about them is that during the start of this pandemic, there were around 3 metric tons of coffee beans from the north, from places like Benguet, Kalinga, Sagada, that suddenly had no buyers. And Augusta Coffee Company did something about it. They bought the beans and then they roasted it and marketed it here to us coffee starved lowlanders. So thank you very much to Augusta Coffee Company. Please do check them out. They have an Instagram page. They have a great selection of local as well as international beans. And by buying beans from the north, we are also helping our farmers in the Cordillera. So thank you, Augusta Coffee Company. To make coffee using a French press, we will need the following: a French press, fresh whole beans, a grinder, mineral water, an electric water heater, a measuring cup, a digital scale, an old-fashioned spoon, some type of container, and finally, your coffee mug. Step 1. Using a digital scale, fill a measuring cup with 300 grams of mineral water. Step 2. Boil the 300 grams of water using the electric water heater. Step 3. Fill a small container with 15 grams of whole unground coffee beans. Measure it all using the digital scale. Step 4. Put the beans in the grinder's hopper. Set the grinder to medium coarseness and the quantity to about 6 cups. Start the grinder and grind until all the beans in the hopper are ground. Step 5. Remove the filter plunger from the French press. Put the beaker on top of the digital scale and make sure to reset the scale to 0 by pressing the tare button. Put in all of the ground coffee beans. Confirm that the amount of beans ground is 15 grams. Step 6. Press the tare button again to reset the scale. Then, slowly pour in the hot water until the scales reach 250 grams. Take the beaker off the scale and set it down on the table. Step 7. Carefully stir the solution 10 times with a spoon. Make sure to submerge the grounds floating at the top of the coffee slurry. Step 8. Start a timer for 4 minutes. Step 9. After 4 minutes, use the spoon to remove any remaining coffee particles and sludge floating at the top of the slurry. Throw this out. Most importantly, do not move the French press. Set the timer again for another 4 minutes. Step number 10. After the second 4 minutes is up, carefully replace the filter plunger, making sure that the grill opening is aligned to the beaker spout, and place the plunger and let it stop just on top of the coffee slurry. And finally, very carefully pour out the brewed coffee into your mug. Enjoy your cup of fresh brewed coffee and have a nice day. Smile! If you're like me, you probably started drinking coffee through instant coffee. And in the Philippines, it's the ubiquitous and inexpensive 3-in-1 coffee. And when I was still back in corporate world, I would have instant 3-in-1 coffee every day. And for the most part, I accepted that as the only coffee in the world. Whenever I went to Starbucks and had their black brewed coffee, I would always be turned off by the burnt, heavy taste of the coffee. And maybe that's because I was so used to the taste of 3 in 1. And yeah, I was probably too addicted to instant 3 in 1 sugar, I mean coffee, that I never developed nor had the inclination to venture into the world of fine, real coffee, which is sad, really. So it wasn't until 2016, when I think it was during a Chasing Light workshop, that a friend slash doctor slash fellow photographer, aka Dr. Nico Valenzuela, brewed for me medium roasted Komodo beans from Indonesia from Starbucks using his French press. And when I tasted it, I was literally mind blown. Like, I didn't know at that point that that was the coffee that I've been waiting for all my life. That I didn't know that there was a coffee could taste that good. And after having that, I never want to drink 3 in 1 anymore. I suddenly realized that I'd been drinking hot sugar all my life. So thank you to Dr. Nico Valenzuela for setting me on this path. So why is brewing your own coffee better than instant 3 in 1 coffee? Well, for one, you start to appreciate that coffee has very complex flavors. And depending on the type of beans that you use, and depending on the brewing method that you use to make your coffee. So for me, I realized that the so called taste of coffee is more than just the sweet taste of 3 in 1, because that's actually just the taste of sugar, right? So when I started to brew my own coffee and started to discover other kinds of beans, I found out that coffee could taste like chocolates, could taste like berries, could taste like tea, some fruits, herbs, citrus, and has as well as have different textures like smooth, creamy, oily, heavy, and so on and so forth. So para siyang wine. It's coffee is really like a world of taste in its own right. The second reason is you reduce your sugar intake. When you take black coffee, you're not the black coffee doesn't have sugar. So we all know that sugar is one of the, if not the leading cause of many health problems, and it's the number one reason why we get fat. Sugar. The good thing about taking black brewed coffee is that there's very little calories, and if you take it, you don't break your keto diet, and you don't break your, if you're doing intermittent fasting, taking it during the fasting period doesn't break your fast. Nice. Lastly, you get the pure benefits of caffeine, which is it keeps you from falling asleep and sustains your energy levels up. And the difference with 3 in 1 coffee is that since it's made up of mostly of sugar, it will always make you crash because it will spike your sugar levels within minutes of consuming it. So you drink 3 in 1 hoping to stay awake, but actually within minutes of it, you will feel that your energy level will crash. So the French press is one of the easiest methods to learn how to make your own coffee because number one, it's very simple to use. The steps are straightforward and there's not a lot of techniques involved. And it's also cheap. You can get a very simple French press that works as well as the fancy ones for just, I think, 400 pesos from SM. And contrary to the steps that were shown earlier in the first part of the video, it just looks complex because try to make the video as clear and as step by step as possible for the beginners out there. But really, if you know the steps, you could try a lot of shortcuts there. And number two, that French press brewing method is actually, I learned that from James Hoffman off of YouTube. And he was the one who suggested that most people, kasi when they use the French press, they plunge the plunger all the way down. And in my experience, when I follow James Hoffman's technique, when I just put it on top of the slurry and then pour it carefully, as well as to steep the coffee for double the usual time, the sediments fall to the bottom of the slurry, and then when you pour it, most of the sediment is filtered out, and it gives you a more smoother, and there's much less particles that can sometimes be annoying. Ayun. So But if you want to do the traditional method, there are a lot of videos in YouTube that show that just wait for 4 minutes, maybe 3, then just plunge it all the way in and pour your coffee. Diba? But mas high-tech tayo eh. So the French press produces a great tasting cup of coffee, and it's different from the other methods because it doesn't use a paper filter. So unlike the coffee maker, which has a filter paper, unlike the pour over, or unlike the AeroPress, for example, yung French press, you immerse the beans and the water together for a long time to extract the taste of the coffee into the water from the beans, and then you pour it. Okay, so ang result nun, since wala siyang paper filter, you get more of the natural oils of the coffee bean. So it results in a thicker, more full-bodied tasting coffee. So hindi siya kasing suabe or kasing smooth ng other methods, but yung lasa ng coffee from a French press, it's really very robust, at siguro masasabi kong kapeng-kape talaga yung lasa niya. And this is one of those methods that's very easy to do, but you get real full tasting coffee, and it's really one of the best ways to learn how to brew your own cup. So there are a lot of coffee beans to choose from, and sometimes it can be daunting to choose or to pick which one is best for me. I can't say that now kung ano yung guide, because that's probably fit for another video. But for myself, I tend to choose Arabica beans and then medium roast. In roasting, beans usually are roasted medium or dark. Dark being mas matagal yung pagluluto sa or pagro-roast sa beans, thereby resulting in stronger, more intense flavors. And at this point in my coffee tasting adventure, I think I'm not yet ready to go out or to try dark roast. Although I do like some dark roasted beans, like the dark roast from Sagada, but generally I tend to prefer medium roasted beans because mas milder yung flavors, mas madali silang intindihin at i-appreciate. And in terms of the techniques kanina, you might notice that I use a spoon and not this, because this is a coffee scoop. So itong coffee scoop, eksakto tong 15 grams. Okay, so in coffee brewing science, we usually stick to a recipe, and the standard recipe is 60 grams to a liter of water. So if you're just brewing for yourself, 1 cup is usually 250 grams of water, 250 ml. You would need just 15 grams of ground beans. So itong scoop na to, eksaktong 15 grams ang laman nito. But if you don't have a coffee scoop yet, and you have a digital scale, you can use a regular spoon and just pwede nyo lang itimbang yung beans na ginagamit nyo. Kung wala pa kayong digital scale, ang tansya ko doon is 2 full heapings ng tablespoon. Ang importante kasi dito, when you're brewing your coffee, especially if you've brewed a cup na nagustuhan nyo, is you're able to be consistent about it. When you brew again tomorrow, the next day, and the next week, parehas yung lasa, consistent. Okay, so that's where measuring comes into play. You're able to make a consistent cup day in and day out. Okay, so I really suggest that if you want to be consistent with your brew, you have all these measuring devices like a digital scale, measuring cup, coffee scooper. Otherwise, gawan nyo na muna ng paraan. Like, dati minamarkahan ko yung French press ko, nilalagyan ko ng masking tape at a certain level para alam ko kung hanggang gaano karami yung tubig na ilalagay ko. And I also use, yung tansya ko, yung 2 full heaping of the tablespoon as my guide to how much coffee I will need. So, kanina nakita nyo yung electric grinder ko na sira na yung switch but still working perfectly. I bought it in SM for sale 3 years ago and really works well up until today. And if you don't have that, you can get one of these. This is a manual grinder. So you put the beans on top here. You set the grind size here at the bottom, kung fine or coarse. And you grind away hanggang maubos yung nilagay yung beans. And it's actually good for workout. Pero syempre, mas convenient pa rin pag electric grinder. Now, bakit kailangan ipag-grind, or why do you need to grind your beans yourself? you can actually have your beans ground by your vendor. Actually, pag sa Starbucks, pag bumili ka ng bag of beans, tatanungin ka ng barista if you want your beans to be ground already. And that's perfectly okay. But in coffee science, in coffee theory, it's really best to grind the beans just before you brew them. Kasi you are able to preserve more of the of the beans essence, flavor, aroma, and so on and so forth if you grind them just before you brew them. Para siyang espiritu ng soft drinks pag binuksan mo yung bote, biglang lumalabas yung espiritu. Ganun din sa coffee beans. If you grind them, the essence of the coffee beans rapidly dissipates. So it's better to grind your beans just before you brew them. Very important. So there you have it. I hope I was able to share with you a couple of ideas about coffee, and I hope I inspire you to take your own coffee adventure. Once again, I'd like to thank my friends from Augusta Coffee Company, to Lance for sending the beans, for letting me try your awesome roast. And guys, please support them, follow them, and get beans from them. Check them out, Augusta Coffee Company in Instagram. You can order through their website, through their IG page. And what else? Ayun lang. So I hope you enjoy this. This is first time I'm making non-photography content, and I hope I was able to, I don't know. I hope it works. I hope it was fun. It was a long time in the making, but I did have fun. Bye guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Ay hindi, hindi na pala ganun ngayon. Ang uso ngayon ay bye.